Let's be honest. Men aren't as simple as the world makes them out to be. Everyone says men just want respect, loyalty, and sex, right? But what if I told you there's a whole world of emotional needs buried under that stereotype, needs that most men are desperate to have met, but almost no woman even realizes exist. Men are taught to be strong, silent, and stoic. From a young age, they learn to suppress rather than express. So they carry their pain quietly. They crave peace, but often live in pressure. They desire appreciation, but instead, they're told to man up. And behind that quiet exterior, there's a man who's starving for understanding, craving to be seen not just as a provider, but as a person. Here's the shocking part. Most relationships fail, not because love disappears, but because these emotional needs go completely unnoticed. He doesn't stop loving her, he just stops feeling safe with her. So today, we're pulling back the curtain on what men truly need, but rarely ever say out loud. Whether you're a woman who wants to love more deeply, or a man trying to understand yourself better, this conversation will change the way you see connection forever. Because when a man finally feels emotionally understood, everything shifts, his loyalty deepens, his love grows stronger, and his walls begin to fall. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll see the hidden emotional world of men like you've never seen it before. You know what's interesting? Most men in relationships aren't angry. They're silent. They don't shut down because they don't care. They shut down because after a while they realize that speaking doesn't change anything. Here's the hard truth. Men often feel like their emotions don't carry the same weight as women's. When a woman expresses how she feels, the world listens. But when a man tries to do the same, he's often told he's overreacting, being too sensitive, or not being a real man. So he learns to stop talking, not because he doesn't want to connect, but because he's tired of feeling unheard. He'll sit in silence, absorbing the tension, pretending everything's fine. But inside he's screaming for a moment of understanding, for someone to say, I hear you. He doesn't need a solution every time he speaks. He just needs space to be vulnerable without judgment. Because for men, vulnerability feels like walking through fire. What's even more heartbreaking is that this silence often gets misread as emotional distance. Many women think he's pulling away or he doesn't care anymore. But the truth is, he's protecting himself from more pain, from being misunderstood again. Men don't want to argue. They want peace. They want to feel that their feelings matter too, that their fears and frustrations won't be used against them later. They want to know they can speak and still be respected afterward. And when they don't get that, they internalize it. They become the man who listens but never shares, who provides but never confides. Eventually, he becomes emotionally invisible in his own relationship. It's not that he doesn't want to talk, it's that he doesn't see the point anymore. He believes that silence is safer than honesty, and that's where emotional disconnection begins, not in anger, but in quiet resignation. So if you've ever wondered why the man you love seems distant or withdrawn, remember this: behind that silence is someone who deeply wants to be heard, but has forgotten what it feels like to be understood. When most people think about what men want in a relationship, the first word that comes to mind is love. We're taught that love is everything, the ultimate goal, the emotional glue that holds two people together. But here's the truth, that almost no one talks about love alone isn't enough for most men. What men crave even more than love is respect. Now, that might sound simple, but it runs deeper than most realize. Respect is the air a man breathes in a relationship. It's what fuels his confidence, his effort, and his emotional connection. A man can be completely in love with a woman, but if he feels disrespected, ignored, belittled, or constantly criticized, that love starts to fade into frustration. For a man, respect doesn't mean blind obedience or submission. It means being seen and valued for who he is, not just what he provides. When a woman speaks to her man with trust and belief in his capability, something inside him comes alive. He feels motivated to love harder, protect stronger, and commit deeper. But when she constantly questions him, mocks his ideas, or compares him to others, it cuts deeper than she might ever realize. Men don't open up easily. Every time he shares his dreams or his struggles, he's taking a risk. He's saying, I trust you with a piece of me I don't show the world. But if that moment is met with judgment or criticism, he shuts that door, sometimes permanently. Respect to a man is safety. It tells him he's accepted, not because he's perfect, but because his efforts matter. It's in the small moments, when she listens without interrupting, when she says, "I believe in you," or even when she lets him lead sometimes without making him feel like he's wrong for doing so. The irony is, most men don't know how to ask for respect. They just feel the absence of it. When it's there, they stand taller. They become more affectionate, more emotionally available, more driven. When it's missing, they withdraw, shut down, or begin to question their worth in the relationship. Many women give love, affection, care, kindness, but unknowingly strip away respect in how they communicate. Little things like correcting him in public, using sarcasm to teach a lesson, or making him feel like his ideas don't matter. Those chip away at his emotional core, and once respect is gone, love starts to feel like pity. So, the next time you wonder what your man truly needs, remember this: he doesn't need grand gestures or perfect romance. He needs to feel respected, because when a man feels respected, he automatically feels loved. Respect is the language that unlocks his loyalty, his trust, and his full heart. Love touches his emotions, but respect touches his soul. When we talk about respect in a relationship, it's easy to reduce it to politeness, or just not insulting someone. But for men, respect carries a completely different emotional weight. It isn't just about tone or manners. It's about how they feel seen and valued at their core. To a man, respect is the emotional balance point that makes love feel safe. It's what allows him to be open without feeling weak and strong without feeling cold. You see, most men move through life constantly trying to prove themselves to their families, their careers, their partners. The world tells them their worth depends on their success. So when they come home, they're not just looking for affection. They're looking for a place where they don't have to prove anything to be accepted. That's what respect means to him. It's when he feels that even if he fails, even if he's struggling or uncertain, the woman beside him still sees his effort, his intention, his heart. That kind of respect is magnetic. It restores a man's confidence, reignites his energy, and deepens his emotional connection to the relationship. But when a man feels disrespected, when his opinions are dismissed, when his efforts go unnoticed, or when he's constantly corrected, it doesn't just hurt his pride. It wounds his sense of purpose, because in his mind, respect equals trust. And when trust fades, so does his willingness to open up. Respect also isn't about agreement all the time. You don't have to agree with everything he says or does to show respect. What he feels deeply is the tone behind your disagreement. When you can challenge him without tearing him down, when you can correct without condescending, you create emotional balance, a space where both people can feel valued. For men, that balance is vital. Without it, they start to feel like they're in a constant emotional tug of war, trying to lead without being controlling, trying to express without being dismissed, trying to love without losing themselves. Many women don't realize that small gestures can communicate huge amounts of respect. Looking him in the eye when he talks, saying, "I trust your judgment," acknowledging his effort, even if it didn't go perfectly. Those moments stay with him longer than any romantic words. When a man feels respected, he relaxes, he listens more, he gives more. He starts to feel emotionally balanced because he no longer has to fight for understanding. Respect doesn't inflate his ego. It restores his peace. And that's the secret most people overlook for a man. Respect isn't about power. It's about belonging. It's knowing that the person he loves sees him not as a project to fix or a challenge to win, but as a partner worth believing in. That's what respect really means to him. Not submission, not silence, but emotional safety wrapped in admiration. There's something powerful about admiration. It's more than just a compliment or kind word. For a man, admiration is the emotional fuel that drives his confidence, his purpose, and his love. When a man feels admired by the woman he cares about, he feels unstoppable. But when that admiration disappears, he begins to shrink, not just emotionally, but spiritually. You see, every man carries a quiet question in his heart. Am I enough? He might not say it out loud, but it's there, under every goal he chases, every risk he takes, every effort he makes in the relationship. When the woman he loves looks at him with admiration, that question gets answered. Her belief in him tells him he's capable, strong, and worthy. It builds him from the inside out. Admiration isn't about inflating his ego. It's about affirming his identity. It's those small moments when she says, "I'm proud of you," or "I trust you with this," or even just gives him that look that says, "I believe in you." Those moments hit deeper than most people realize. They don't just make him feel appreciated. They awaken something inside him that wants to be more, do more, and give more. When a man feels admired, his confidence flourishes. He starts walking differently, talking differently. He takes more initiative, becomes more affectionate, and invests more emotionally in the relationship. Why? Because admiration is proof to him that his efforts mean something. It tells him that he's not just loved for what he provides, but valued for who he is. But when admiration fades, when criticism becomes the norm, or when his efforts go unnoticed, he starts to question himself. He becomes hesitant, quieter, and less driven. It's not that he stops loving, it's that he no longer feels like he can win. And when a man feels like he can't win with the woman he loves, he begins to emotionally retreat. Here's the truth. Most people don't realize, men don't crave admiration because they're vain. They crave it because it gives them a sense of purpose. When his partner believes in him, he feels like he can take on the world. When she doesn't, even small challenges feel impossible. So if you want to truly empower a man, not manipulate him, but inspire him, start with admiration. Notice the little things. Celebrate his effort even when the outcome isn't perfect. Tell him you're proud, not because he's flawless, but because he keeps showing up. Because when a man feels admired, he becomes the best version of himself, not just for her, but for the life they're building together. Admiration doesn't just boost his confidence, it transforms his entire sense of self-worth. It's the quiet love language that turns a man's potential into power. One of the most misunderstood emotional needs men have in relationships is their need for peace and space. To many women, this can feel like emotional distance, like he's pulling away or losing interest. But for most men, needing space isn't about rejection. It's about recharging. It's about finding a quiet moment where they can process emotions, responsibilities, and thoughts without the constant pressure to explain or perform. Men are often wired to internalize their stress. When life feels overwhelming, they don't always vent or talk it out the way women do. Instead, they retreat, not because they don't care, but because silence is how they regain balance. That space helps them make sense of what they're feeling, so they can return to the relationship with a clearer mind and a calmer heart. But here's where things often go wrong. When a man asks for space, many women interpret it as disinterest. They chase, question, or demand reassurance, which only makes him withdraw further. It's not that he wants to be alone forever. He just needs to breathe without the weight of expectations. When that peace is respected, he feels safe enough to come back stronger. When it's denied, he feels suffocated and misunderstood. For men, peace in a relationship is like oxygen. It's not the absence of love. It's the environment where love can thrive. They crave calmness, not chaos. A sense that their home, their relationship, and their partner are places of refuge, not constant tension. What most men won't say is that they equate peace with emotional safety. When he knows he can be quiet without being questioned, or alone without being accused, he feels trusted, and that trust draws him closer. So, if he takes a step back, don't see it as a wall going up. See it as him finding his center. Give him that space without resentment, and you'll find he naturally returns with more affection, focus, and energy. Because when a man's need for peace is honored, his heart feels understood, and that's when real intimacy begins. When men talk about wanting support in a relationship, they don't always mean grand gestures or constant reassurance. To a man, support often looks quiet, steady, consistent, and rooted in belief. It's not about fixing his problems or taking over. It's about standing beside him in a way that says, "I see what you're carrying, and I trust you to handle it, but you don't have to do it alone." For many men, the world feels like a battlefield. Every day they face pressures to succeed, to lead, to provide, to stay strong. And while they might not always show it, that weight can be exhausting. When he comes home to a partner who believes in him, not just when he's winning, but especially when he's struggling, that belief becomes his anchor. It reminds him he's not defined by his failures or his fears, but by his effort and resilience. Support to a man isn't about constant advice. In fact, sometimes advice can feel like criticism wrapped in concern. What he really needs is presence. Someone who listens without trying to solve. Someone who encourages instead of corrects. When she says, "I know you'll figure it out," it gives him back his strength. It tells him she trusts his judgment and respects his process. True support is emotional stability. It's when she doesn't panic when he's quiet, doesn't take his stress personally, and doesn't demand perfection. It's when she chooses to be calm instead of critical, patient instead of pushy. That kind of emotional support gives a man peace. The kind of peace that allows him to keep fighting the battles life throws at him. But support also shows up in subtle, everyday ways. A simple text that says, "I believe in you." A warm hug when he feels defeated. Or even just letting him vent without judgment. These moments tell him that his emotions are safe with her, that he can be vulnerable without losing respect. When a man feels supported, he becomes more open. He starts sharing his fears, his doubts, his dreams. He begins to let his guard down because he knows she's not just there for the good days. She's there for the grind too. That kind of loyalty strengthens his love in a way that passion alone never could. You see, for men, support is love in action. It's not about doing everything for him, but about believing in him. It's knowing when to step in and when to simply stand beside him. Because when a man feels genuinely supported, he doesn't just survive, he thrives. He becomes a better partner, a better man, and most importantly, a better version of himself. That's what real support looks like to him. Not control, not constant praise, but unwavering belief that says, "You've got this, and I've got you." Let's be honest. Most women in relationships don't set out to hurt the man they love. In fact, the mistakes that push men away are rarely intentional. They usually come from care, frustration, or a genuine desire to make things better. But sometimes what feels like helping or communicating can actually make a man feel unheard, disrespected, or emotionally unsafe. One of the most common mistakes women make is trying to change a man instead of understanding him. It often comes from good intentions, wanting him to reach his potential, to communicate more, to do things differently. But to a man, constant correction feels like disapproval. It tells him, "You're not enough as you are." Over time, this erodes his confidence and makes him pull away. The fix: shift from criticism to encouragement. Instead of saying, "You never listen," try, "I really appreciate when you make time to hear me out." The message is the same, but one shuts him down and the other draws him closer. Another mistake is using emotional intensity to get through to him. When men feel attacked or overwhelmed, they don't engage. They retreat. It's not because they don't care, but because they process emotions differently. The more heated things get, the more they shut down to protect themselves. The solution isn't to stop expressing emotions, it's to express them calmly and directly. Say what you feel, but do it in a tone that invites conversation, not defense. Then there's the mistake of comparing him to other men, even subtly. Whether it's a friend's husband, an ex, or a coworker, comparisons make a man feel small and inadequate. He doesn't want to compete for admiration. He wants to earn it from the woman he loves. The fix: focus on what he does right. Acknowledge his effort. Gratitude inspires growth far more than comparison ever will. And finally, one of the biggest unspoken mistakes is not giving him space. Many women interpret a man's silence or solitude as rejection, when in reality, it's often how he restores himself. When you chase him during that time, it makes him feel cornered. When you give him room with trust, it makes him feel respected, and he'll naturally come back more open and connected. The truth is, men don't need perfection. They need peace, respect, and belief. Most of these mistakes aren't about love missing. They're about understanding missing. When women learn to communicate without control, to guide without criticizing, and to love without comparison, the whole relationship shifts. Because when a man feels emotionally safe, he doesn't just love harder, he loves freely. And that's when true partnership begins. Not when we fix each other, but when we finally learn to see each other. By now you've learned that men's emotional needs run far deeper than most people realize. Love alone, while essential, isn't enough. Men crave respect, admiration, peace, and support, often more than we consciously understand. Meeting these needs isn't about manipulation or perfection. It's about creating an environment where he feels truly seen, valued, and safe. And when that happens, something magical occurs. The emotional bond between partners strengthens in ways that last a lifetime. Building a stronger emotional bond begins with awareness. You can't meet a need you don't recognize. Respect, for example, isn't just about avoiding criticism. It's about honoring his efforts, his opinions, and his role in the relationship. Admiration isn't flattery. It's acknowledging his character, his choices, and the ways he shows up every day. Peace isn't ignoring problems. It's giving him the space to process life's challenges without pressure or judgment. And support isn't doing everything for him. It's standing beside him in a way that reinforces his confidence and security. Once you understand these needs, the next step is consistent action. Small intentional gestures often have the biggest impact. A simple "I believe in you" at the right moment can fuel his drive and devotion. A quiet acknowledgement of his effort or a calm presence during conflict can restore emotional safety. Over time, these small moments create a cumulative effect, a sense of partnership built on trust, respect, and understanding. Another critical element is communication. Men often don't verbalize what they need the way women do, so listening becomes crucial. Asking open-ended questions, giving him space to share, and responding without judgment fosters connection. The more he feels understood, the more he opens his heart, and the deeper the emotional bond grows. Creating this bond also means honoring individuality. Both partners need room to grow, reflect, and recharge. A man who feels trusted and unpressured is more likely to invest emotionally. When he knows he can be himself without fear of criticism or rejection, he feels freedom, and that freedom translates into love, loyalty, and vulnerability. Ultimately, a strong emotional bond isn't built overnight. It's forged through patience, empathy, and mindful choices. It's about showing up consistently, noticing what matters to him, and responding in ways that reinforce his sense of worth. When these needs are met, love transforms. It becomes not just affection or passion, but a profound connection that withstands challenges, nurtures growth, and deepens intimacy. So if your goal is a lasting, emotionally fulfilling relationship, focus not only on expressing love, but on cultivating respect, admiration, peace, and support. When a man feels fully seen and valued, he doesn't just love, he thrives alongside the woman who truly understands him. And that's the ultimate key to building a bond that lasts a lifetime.